Surprise, surprise. Ineohcs here from Nation 255, and today we are talking about damage. How does it work? What is it? Where can I get it? Let's go. So let's start with the topic, what is damage? Because if we go to any of our troops, I go to my camp here, have here level 11 X-Mans, and we look at the stats, there is no damage. Because damage is basically the result of an equation in the battle engine. Means if troops attack each other, the battle engine calculates based on attack and defense of the enemy troop and damage output. And you can see this damage output as these little numbers above your troops in a battle report video. So let me show you a video and we can take a look at it together. Oops. So these little numbers, that's what represents damage in the battle engine, in the battle videos. So to give you a better understanding and overview how all that works, I created two equal cities, two test cities with almost no stat boosts, and did several testings with them. So what we see here is one battle report of these two test cities, both with 2,500 units. It's T4 snipers. And let me play the video. If we take a look at the stats, so we have basically only a 2% HP buff and then 6% attack buff. And as you can see, there's no damage increase or decrease on this city. That's the defending city, and you see that's exactly the same stats, 2% HP, 6% attack, same amount of snipers. And if we now watch the battle, stop here. This is for me the most important event in the battle to analyze all these damage reductions and increased damage stats. Because what we see here is we have the same amount of troops, same stats, and obviously we have the same amount of killed units for attacker and defender. This number, 304 killed troops, keep that in mind because that's our reference points for the next battles. I will play the video a little bit faster. Don't know if you ever have seen a video with two equal armies. Takes quite a time until it's over. So the second battle, again the same two cities with the same amount of snipers, 2,500 units, and you can already see we have a different result here because, let me start the video. Here, if we check the battle reports, we now can see this city has an increased damage to long, mid-range troops and melee troops of 4.3%. That's because I appointed Zeus here. And the other city still unchanged, no increase or damage reduction. So let's see how that changed the first shot. Again, the blue units, the defender has no increase or decrease damage stats. So obviously we kill the same 304 troops than we did before. On the other hand, the attacker with the 4.3 damage boost increased now kills 317 troops. And this is pretty much an increase of 4.3%. And that's basically why this damage increase or damage reduction stats are so good, because they work as a multiplier for the results. So you add another 4.3 damage and you kill 4.3 more troops in this case. Yes. The video until the end, it's much shorter because we have an imbalance in this fight, and yes, more and more troops survive and kill much faster the enemy troops. So for the third test battle, I changed the roles. The attacker city has no increased damage now. I appointed Alexandria on the defender city with 4.3 damage reduction. And let's see how this works. Oops. So you see first shot, again 304 dead units on the attacker side and only 292 dead units on the defender side, which is pretty much again our 4.3%. And for the last test, you can see I appointed the increased damage to the attacker and the reduced damage to the defender. And you can see we have the same 304 dead units on both sides that we had without buffs. So we see that this damage increase and decrease stats are equalizing each other. So that's pretty important to know. So I hope that gives you a pretty good overview of how this damage stats work and why they are so important. And next step is we will check where can we get this damage stats. And I made a little spreadsheet about it. And we can just move through my city and take all the bullet points in the table and look where we can find these stats. So first are the equipment extensions, which can you find in your equipment facility. If you go on the storage, you will see either we have this orange extensions, which give you an increased damage to long-range troops. If you max them at gold quality and level 6, you get 10%. And we have this purple ones, which basically give you the reduced damage taken from stat. Also maxes at quality gold, level 6 at minus 10%. Weapon apparatus gives you damage reduction. Computer gives you damage increase. This gives you nothing. The armor gives you a damage reduction. That's the third one. And the stimulator gives you an increased damage to long-range troops again. Here we have defense, right? So there's a max of 30% increased damage to melee, mid-range, and long-range, and a max of 30% reduced damage taken from melee, mid-range, and long-range with each of these 3 maxed extensions in your equipment facility. If you want to have a better overview which equipment gives you which bonus, I recommend using my Age of Origins stats calculator. Here you have all your 8 equipments, and if you scroll here to the right, you can see where you can get this. So that's a bit more detailed and handier. Also, you can just check out for you, let's say you have only a level 5 purple extension. Sorry, a level 5 purple extension, which buffs this gives you. Okay, next big source for damage reduction and damage increase are your war officers, Zeus and Alexandria. He has this skill called Precise Shot, which increases the damage dealt to all troops by 25.5%. And she has the defense weakness, which reduces all damage taken from troops by 25.5%. This officer skills scale with the star level and the officer level. Again, I can recommend the stats calculator for this. If we switch to the officers, yep. You see here for Alexandria, for example, minus 25.5 damage taken. If she only has like level 40 and 4.1 stars, this would be 60.65%. So that's basically your easiest to get and main parts for the damage reduction and increase stats. Next ones that are available are unworldly skills. So once you reached 5 stars on an officer, not 5, but 5.1 till 6 stars on an officer, you can pick, reroll, whatever, so-called unworldly stats. And each officer has a unique set or separate set of available skills. And we just go through all 6 and let's see what they can do. So Tifa, for example, I don't have this equipped, that's why we don't see it here, but we can check if we go on this Unworldly skill book button and would like to use this skills cards to pick a skill. You see, yes, that she offers a reduced damage taken from melee troop skill. Personally, I don't have it because melee troops do the least damage of all troops in your army. But I know that especially in the 800, 900 worlds, the whales go crazy for melee attack and so on. So maybe it depends a little bit where are you located with your city and what your enemies pick for skills. So this younger nations likely takes a skill, but you won't see it very often in older nations. As I said, in my opinion, melee troops do the least damage of all new army, so I skipped that and picked something else. But I would never do this with mid-range or long-range damage, because that's always the main powerhouse of your enemy for damage. Depends if he's in mid-range player or in long-range player, but makes absolutely sense to use these skills for your Unworldlies. So, as you can see, for Panda, I have the reduced damage taken from mid-range troops, minus 6.5%. The values here in the little spreadsheet, by the way, are the maximum numbers that you can get from the sources, to be clear. So, Zeus again. Don't have equipped that because it's damage taken from melee, but we can also check. Here it is. Stormbow has the reduced damage taken from mid-range troops, and I think the both most important ones, because like 80-90% of all players in the game play long-range cities, are Eon with reduced damage taken up to 50%, and Alexandria with reduced damage taken from long-range troops. But that's not all. You can also get some of these stats with the officer equipment that was released at the beginning of the year. Can quickly go through that. So Simon, for example, has this energy rifle, which gives you the melee killer, increased damage to melee troops. That's pretty much the most important increased damage skill, because you want to be able to kill the enemy front row as fast as possible. And everything that comes after the front line, per definition, has not as much defense and HP as the front row, and will die much faster than the front row. So you really want to focus on that sources every time you have the chance to increase your damage to melee troops, to melt down the enemy front row as fast as possible, and to breach through his fleet. So the increased damage to melee is available, like I said, on the energy rifle for Simon. Goes up to 10% if you max this to level 15. And it's available on Stormbows. Let me check. Tactical Strongbow 2, right. Melee killer, I have it at 4.8%, but you can pump it up to 20% here. Then we have the increased damage to mid-range on Eric. I didn't unlock that yet, but you will find it on the modify guitar once you reach level 15 here. And back to the war officers. That was a long run. And on the rocket launcher of Panda. And increased damage to long range. You will find one on Selena with the Mantis knife. That's this one. And you will find one on Tifa here on the submachine gun. Also, we have for available reduced damage stats in the officer equipment. First one for mid-range is Katie. That's this little thing, guard rabbit. There you can get up to 10%. And on Eon's Ghostface Ninja, right? Mid-range resistance. Both reduce your damage taken from mid-range troops skills. And the most important once again, because most players play long-range armies, is here the small robot of Freya. And the mechanical hold, yeah, that one, of Alexandria, which both give you up to 10%. Also, Age of Origins Stats Calculator, you can just enter your values here and see what each level gives you for a buff. So yeah, really recommend to try this out. So that's pretty much everything you can get from officers. And next source for some damage increase is your male and female Titan. On the male Titan, you can increase your damage to mid-range with his equipment, tier 3. There is, let me check which, yes, this one at the bottom left. Increase troops and biochemical zombies damage to mid-range troops by, I have it at 7.5% at level 15. Maximum is level 30, which gives you 24%. And on the female Titan, it's in the talents. It's called Queen Majesty, right? This one. And here you can increase your damage to long-range troops. Here is a maximum level 20, which gives you 20%. And last but not least, but most expensive, the warplane. So let me switch to the lab. If you are able to max your warplane and get it to the second gold level 7 stage, you unlock this skill here, the armor piercing laser, which can be upgraded up to 25% increased damage to melee. This was pretty much a game changer when the warplane was released, because damage to melee wasn't available somewhere else, because the officer equipment wasn't released yet, and also the warplane equipment wasn't released yet. So it was the only source for increased damage to melee for a long time. Like I said, at the beginning of the year, they released the officer equipment, which also allows non-whales to increase the damage to melee stats. And which is pretty interesting, they released the warplane equipment now. And one of the first skills at the lowest tiers is also the warplane armor piercing laser with the same 25%. Yes, it's on the machined equipment, which is pretty fast available, I think. Let me check in the sheet. What's a requirement? Trailblazer level 2, so that's the first purple tier on level 2. If you reach that, you can unlock this armor piercing laser. Right. And in the other equipments, I think level 3 and level 4, you have another sources for increased damage to mid-range and long-range troops, which can also be maxed at level 30 for 25% on top. So if you add up everything what you can get at the moment, you see you can get up to 125.5% increased damage to melee, 124.5 increased damage to mid-range, and 120.5% increased damage to long-range troops. And on the reduced damage side, again, melee troops damage can be reduced up to 85.5%. And mid-range and long-range damage up to 105.5%. And here is it important again to remind yourself what I said at the beginning with the testings, that reduce damage taken and increase damage to equalizes each other, which means that the player with a fully maxed increased damage to long-range troops fires with his snipers on enemy snipers, and the enemy has reduced damage from long-range troops max at 105.5%. The attacker will only do the difference between these two values, which is 15% additional damage. One last word perhaps about zombie troops, because they aren't mentioned here in this sheet. All these stats doesn't apply for zombies. Only exception are the two main skills of Zeus and Alexandria, because it says to all troops. And if you have any all troops stats like all troops attack, all troops defense, all troops HP, whatever, these stats also work for zombies. So in that case, Zeus and Alexandria are the only sources to decrease or increase damage to zombies. That's important to know, because that's one of the key factors why zombie troops are as strong as they are. So I hope this guide is useful and gives you a better understanding of how damage works, where I can get it, why it's so important. And yeah, I would be happy if you want to join my Discord, if you want to use my Age of Origins stats calculator. I post the link to the Discord, to this sheet, to this damage sources matrix, and to the stats calculator in the video description. If you want me to cover any topic, please write it in the comments. If you want to play with me in the same nation, we always have some cities available. Just shoot me a message and we will see what we have and what we can do for you. And yeah, that's it pretty much for today. I hope you like it and see you soon.